Ladies and gentlemen, it is your sweet Zionist Prince, Tall, the traveling cloud, coming to you live from the beautiful, sexy, beautiful, amazing country, best country in the world, Israel. Besides the U.S., another best country in the world. Today we're looking at a clip on Sky News of Douglas Murray, the king himself. Let's see it.
Joining me now, as he does every week, is best-selling author Douglas Murray. Douglas, it's hard to know where to start. So much has happened this week with President Donald Trump's executive orders, including pulling the US out of the UN Human Rights Council, cutting funding for UNRWA, and now this groundbreaking plan to rebuild Gaza. What do you make of it all? And is he serious about the US taking over Gaza, or is it a negotiation strategy?
Well, first of all, I mean, all of these presidential orders and directives are, I think, fantastic. The pulling the US out of the so-called UN Human Rights Council is a bare minimum thing.
True. It's the biggest win we could have possibly gotten from this. I'm not saying for Israel. I'm talking for humanity. UNRWA should be defunded and should disappear completely. It's only going to stay alive by proxy states in Europe at this point, like Italy and whatever the fuck who else wants to support it, because they've got a special hatred in their hearts for Jewish people for some odd reason, like Spain. I can see them just funding it by a couple $1 million a year just to keep it alive. But it's literally a terrorist organization. I have books in my house from UNRWA schools that are full of terrorist propaganda. It's crazy.
Time looking at or sitting through the Alice in Wonderland procedures at the UN Human Rights Council would realize that no self-respecting liberal democracy should have anything to do with it. Sort of place where North Korea denounces Australia for its treatment of women, and the Iranian regime talks about the importance of nuclear non-proliferation and all that sort of thing. There's absolutely, it's an absolute fantasy land. And it's always been a farce, and I don't really see why America or any other self-respecting democracy should have anything much to do with it. As for the Gaza announcements this week, they certainly break the paradigm, don't they, Rita? The current thinking on Gaza, as far as there was any, was that having started another war against Israel in October 2023, just the latest of many wars that Hamas run Gaza started against Israel since Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, that the main thinking was, well, after they've lost again, everyone should just pay more billions to rebuild Gaza and hand it back to the Palestinians of Gaza so that they can start another war in a few years' time when they've rearmed and made their leadership a bit much richer. And I didn't think that was a viable idea. I don't actually think very many international players thought it was a very viable idea, but it was sort of the only idea that anyone had on the table. Trump has said what is completely true, which is Gaza isn't especially livable these days. You'll remember, viewers will remember that all of our taxpayer dollars and pounds and euros that were sent to Hamas-run Gaza were mainly used to buy luxury apartments for the Hamas leadership in Qatar. And also, of course, very importantly, to build the huge underground tunnel network in which the Hamas authorities could protect their rockets and make sure that they were as safe as possible. And, of course, also then hold young Jewish babies and others captive. All of this they ruined the Gaza. And, in my view, Rita, there is a price to be paid. There always has been historically for starting wars again and again against your neighbors and then losing them. Hamas lost this war. It's in the final processes of losing it. And I think it's perfectly appropriate they should lose land. That's what always happens in war. And that's why you shouldn't start a war. And it's almost as if there's a lesson there, isn't there?
Indeed. It's also becoming increasingly clear that the Saudi-Israel peace deal is going to move ahead, and it's not going to be conditional on Palestinian statehood. That was the conventional wisdom for many years, that any Arab-Israeli normalization was conditional on Palestinian statehood. Trump turned that on its head during his first term. There seems to be continuing with that. And as for the plans to relocate the Gazans. Donald Trump has floated the idea of Egypt or Jordan taking in people from Gaza. But you have another idea, Douglas. You wrote in the New York Post that perhaps countries like Ireland and Canada and Pakistan and those who seem to say they care so much about the Palestinians, maybe they should step forward.
True.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's perfectly obvious that Jordan and Egypt should take in large numbers of the population from Gaza, partly because, I mean, in Egypt's case, it has a historic responsibility over Gaza, a historic responsibility that it has ignored in recent decades.
Let's also not forget that Egypt is pretty much solely responsible for October 7th. Yeah? If it was not for Egypt, October 7th would not have happened. All the weapons, all the machinery, all the trucks, all the explosives came through Egypt to Gaza to then kill people on October 7th. Egypt has to take in Gaza. Has to.
But they used to own and run the Gaza, and they should be really good at looking after much of the population of the benighted Strip. As for Jordan, it's pretty much a Palestinian state anyway. And Queen Rania has been very vocal about how much she cares about the Palestinians in the last 15 months. Didn't seem to care so much about the war that they started against Israel. But I think Queen Rania now has a fantastic opportunity. She has many, many palaces, Queen Rania of Jordan. And this is a great opportunity to relocate those benighted Gazans to some of her palaces. As for Ireland, Pakistan, Canada, and other countries, yes, if they care so much about the Palestinian people who keep on starting wars that they lose, then I think it's a great opportunity to take some of these people in very large numbers. And I'm sure that as I said in the New York Post, I'm sure that the Palestinians from Gaza will help their countries that receive them to boom in their own special and indeed traditional way.
Douglas Murray's sarcasm here is absolutely amazing. Where if you're a fucking idiot, you won't be able to discern. I do that all the time in my videos, by the way. If you're a dumbass, you're not gonna be able to discern that he's being sarcastic. But if you're watching this seriously, you're like, oh yeah, of course, the Palestinians are a hardworking population. They'll really integrate well in society. Like, yeah, for sure. Let's see it happen.
I just wish you wouldn't give this sort of advice, because our government here in Australia is silly enough to actually take it. We are one of the very few places, perhaps the only place in the world, that's taken thousands in from an area where you would have to suggest they cannot be vetted properly. You don't know if these people are sympathetic to Hamas or not. Now let's talk about the...
Okay, here's the answer. They are sympathetic to Hamas. They are.
UK, where we are seeing some extraordinary polling numbers showing that Nigel Farage's reform is ahead now of the Tories in every major...
All right, that's pretty much enough on the Israel update. They are absolutely pro-Hamas. They are. Majority of Palestinians are. Just remember that. There's no hope. Anyways, no, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of optimism in the Middle East. I don't mean to make a joke out of it. We're going to see what happens. There's just so much. There's so much going on. There's so much to watch for. I'm excited for all of it. And may God bless America. God bless the United States of America. God bless the United States of Israel. And God bless Palestine. I love you guys a long time, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, class. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.